I gotta do a mic check, you dig? Mic check, mic check. It should come back really loud. Mic check, mic check. I gotta do a mic check, you dig? It's perfect. Okay, so give me 5 minutes. Let me, pull up the tabs for this one, and we're moving on with the next subject. This is some goofy. Let me relax on the foul language, the profane language. This is goofy, right? Wait till I read this right here for you. This is going to be just embarrassing, okay? Just totally embarrassing. So just bear with me. Matter of fact, while you're bearing with me, let me just entertain you with fair notice when he called in. All right. So hold on. So let me just entertain you with fair notice until I'm prepared to give you my all. Plus, I gotta go get my charger anyway. All right. Let me just entertain you with fair notice. Matter of fact, maybe Brother Khalid.
Everyday person don't even know who they are
at all. Zero. And damn, man, his name, the tip of my tongue, man. I cannot gather it. Royal.
That's his name.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And I like the job that they doing.
Yeah, that's a great point, though.
He's doing a beautiful job in Kansas City.
Right. Yeah, he is. But he holding it down.
But for the most part, this man is global. This man is global, man. They recognize this man. They throw out a red carpet for this man everywhere he goes.
Right. Yeah, that's a fair point.
Right. He's laid down a foundation. He's put in work.
Yeah, well, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad said, compare the clean glass with the dirty glass.
Right.
So that was his way of settling that. Like, all right, you think you got something? All right, let's compare.
Right.
And let's compare and contrast. And you claim you got the life-giving teachings. You ain't save as much people.
Exactly. When you hear this
tiny fraction.
When people hear this man, people just hear him, whether they accept it or not. They feel some type of way when they just hear his voice. They might not accept it, but they still know. They feel it resonates.
Well, I could take one major mistake that Royale did. Did you hear his reason why he didn't want to fix his teeth? Did you hear his reason?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, because he had no teeth, and like for a reason, I forgot what he had, like a issue, accident, whatever. But he didn't want to fix that. It's like, dude, if you're coming before the black man in America, right? Americans, period. We are very judgmental. Like, presentation is everything. That should be the first thing, and his followers and relatives pushed him, but his arrogance, he didn't want to. And bro, that you ain't gonna go far with that, especially with the youth. Yeah.
And that was the first thing that Nasrallah Muhammad did when he came. That was the principle in which he drew the people, was his appearance.
Right. Yeah, so now this is a little left right here, but we had talked about this briefly because this is like within the teachings, this is very controversial, this event. So now I know you talked about this probably your whole existence as a member. The assassination of Malcolm X, like can you take us through like what you believe happened, like from the beginning that started these the sit down, the silence, all the way to assassination? Like how you like give me some events and then conclude who you think was ultimately responsible.
There's no doubt that ultimately responsible was the CIA.
Right, but let's start right there. Let's start right there when Malcolm X said Wallace D. Muhammad had whispered in his ear. Like start right there, like and take us through that all the way to the assassination. Like just like a quick summation.
Have you ever seen the video when they asked Wallace about that and he totally changed the story? You have seen that?
Yeah.
And Wallace said it was not him that told Malcolm that.
Right.
Now, I have no proof, bro. I have no proof except for what I've seen. And sometimes we have to. It's a necessary, I guess you could say a necessary evil to fill in the gap. But you have to fill in the gap. But there's some kind of way that the CIA had got a control over Wallace. The FBI had a stranglehold on Wallace. And Wallace did some things that no other person, as a Muslim, operating as a Muslim leader, why would you sell the mosque? Why would you sell the mosque that your father had left? Why would you destroy that? Wallace was operating as a whisperer in the ear of Malcolm.
Right.
And the recording was, if you listen to the recording, Malcolm really wanted to come back to the Nation of Islam. He apologized for it. But before they can allow that, they took their brother out. I sincerely believe that they made a move on him because they knew that he was on his way back. They knew that he was on his way back. The incident that took place, he was going through a lot with that. Did you know that?
Say that again, one time.
When the incident took place, the assassination took place, did you know that he was going through a lot with that?
You talking about Malcolm X?
Yes, sir. He was going through a lot with his wife.
Yeah, I know some of that letters and all that stuff. Yeah.
And she was nagging it. She was really nagging it to death. She was nagging it like to death. And he got a lot on his plate dealing with the nation, dealing with that. But before Malcolm was assassinated, he went from temple. Before he even left the Nation of Islam, he went from temple to temple, explaining the domestic life on the lives of others to the believers. He explained it. He broke it down using scripture. But then when the suspicion comes, he totally switched up. And he played like he had no idea of what was going on with the lives on the domestic life. He played like it took him by surprise.
Yeah, I heard that before. Yeah.
In the lecture series, in the lecture that the minister gave about Muhammad Ali passed, the life and path of Muhammad Ali, the minister Farrakhan broke it down. He talked about that. He said he was sitting in the car with Malcolm. And Malcolm asked him, did he know about what was going on with the domestic life of Muhammad? The minister Farrakhan told him, I did. He said, I did. I know. He said, I'm surprised that you didn't know. And he said, this Malcolm looked at him and said, you gonna tell him that. And Farrakhan said, yeah, but you need to talk to him. He said, leave it alone. He said, but you got something that you need to talk to him. And he told leave it alone, man. Just leave it alone. And he got quiet. And he looked over to Farrakhan and he asked him, he said, how long do I got? And Farrakhan said, you got to reason. Because I'm saying, why didn't you tell him? So he went to sit down and talk to them about it. But the whole thing was CIA conspiracy to snuff out the Black Messiah, rise in the Black Messiah.
Yeah.
And they moved to destroy any black organization
think it's commonly known, right, throughout America and Americans that the Nation of Islam were separatists. So, well, what are some, like, again, just for some of the audience, because we got a mixed multitude, right, of people.
Right.
But like I said, I don't want to say it. I'd rather let the guest say it. So, what are some of the reasons for separation? You can come off the top of that way.
The biggest reason why the Nation of Islam is under the rule of separation is because if we read scripture, we are supposed to be guided by the scripture. Moses never went to Pharaoh and said we need to integrate. The first thing that he commanded by the whole world tell Pharaoh to let my people go. We want to separate from you. We want to get away from you. So scripturally speaking, we are supposed to separate. God wanted us to integrate. He wanted us to separate. Get out of Egypt. Leave Egypt. Socially speaking, if you look at any time, if you go back to history, look at any time where black people left the South, and this state right here, Oklahoma, in the state of Oklahoma, there were more black towns in the state of Oklahoma than any other state in the United States of America.
Yeah.
At that time,
I learned that.
Sir?
You're right. I have learned that. I was surprised. Yeah.
Yes, sir. And at that time, these black cities, towns, prospered like no other. There were very, very prosperous black towns in the state of Oklahoma. And the reason why they prospered was because they were separated from white people. They were left alone. We go to show that as long as we get away from them, we leave their influence. And once we leave their influence, we do so much better. We'll never be able to prosper as long as we are under their control. As long as we are under their influence. Because we start operating in a mindset that this they set for us. At the beginning, you heard of telephone
Sure.
Black Wall Street. Black Wall Street.
Yep.
Black Wall Street. Black Wall Street. The black people separate. The white people separate the black people. They made the black people separate from them. And when they did separate from them, they prospered like no other time. Black Wall Street, they took advantage of having anything that white people had, but they traded it for themselves. They had their own lawyers, their own theaters, their own influences.
Yeah. Now, some would say this, right? Some would say separate, then you're losing out, and then separate, you're behind 400 years because Europeans through slavery, right? Transatlantic slavery, they got a 200, 300, 400-year advantage on free labor, right? Around the clock, basically.
Yes, sir.
A lot of steel companies started just from slavery. A lot of coal mines and other things that we see today as a result of free labor. So, I heard this before. So, May would say, if you want to start, even then, 1960, 1950, 1970, if you're separate, in a separate state, many I heard this argument that you would be 300 years behind. They got a 300-year head start. They got so much going on, and don't forget, now you got your own train moving. You're not going to get free labor, so you're 300 behind.
Right.
You're 300 years behind. Your horsepower would never equate, so the gap would just continue to spread. What we say about that?
The first thing I would say is other countries have always operated from high, but they still, when it comes to going out on their own, you're going to be black. There are so many black men in the United States of America that have been incarcerated time and time for that starting all over again, that shouldn't be nothing new to us. Because we do this every time. So truly, we're going to fall behind any other civilization, any other nation, country that's already got itself established and going. But that's just something we have to deal with. And with the power of God, we can overcome that obstacle. It's not an obstacle that can't be conquered. It's not an obstacle that you can't get past. That makes sense?
Yeah. So I recall in the message of the black man, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad asking the government, in order to kind of tip the scale a little bit, he's asking the government to for a separate state and to cultivate it, build the infrastructure, and pretty much finance it and fine tune it for 25 years. Now, when I heard that, when I read things, I'm good with connecting this with that. So when I read the Bible, I was good reading from one book, a similar story, and I read another book. I was good like tying things. So once I heard that took me to the story of Yaqub. That's what when the king asked Yaqub what he want, for him and his followers.
Right.
He asked for a separate state. He asked for the same thing, separate state and 25 years aid. That was interesting. But, yeah. So do you think the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad is taking a case from Yaqub?
I think so, because if you look throughout history, there's always been time. Even when certain tribes of Africa disagreed and they separate. Look at the Bantu language. The Bantu language is a connection of how the Africans dispersed throughout the continent of Africa. The Bantu language shows you how this tribe started in West Africa and ranged all the way down to South Africa. The Bantu language connects each and every one of these tribes to show you their pattern of migration, their split. So each time if you study the history, each time that one tribe left and split from another tribe, that always were supplied by that tribe to do that split. And that's just the way that civilizations have always operated. If I'm ousting you, then I'm going to give you a farewell.
Right.
I guess you can call it reparation.
Yeah, some type of stimulus package. Yeah. So the reason why I brought that up.
Stimulus package.
Yeah, the reason I brought that up because I'm like, well, I've seen it.
And I noticed the same thing when I read it, bro.
Yeah. So look. So what's interesting is this: that America, if America knows that story, then they know the outcome. If they do that, because when Yaqub did that, he really populated. It was doing for self, right? And they got their plan together, and they came back, with a vengeance, right? And then ultimately they end up subduing, everybody ultimately. So the American like, hell no, we know what happened with Yaqub. They ain't doing that, yeah.
And I feel that I noticed that same story. But one of the things that got me is if given that we are different people. We are different people, especially when we accept these teachings. I heard student minister Wesley Muhammad talk about the character of Farrakhan. That's the interview he did with this Jew. He's over in Israel.
Yeah.
And the Jew tried to manipulate Dr. Wesley's words. He tried to get off into this y'all believe that the white man is the devil. He tried to go that route, try to use that against Dr. Wesley. He invited him to this. He said, I'm not going to fight off into that because I'm trying to have the character of my teacher. And he said, there's one thing you can't do. If you, my underground character that you cannot explain. And when he said that, that resonated to me because we would never operate under the same principle. The unlogical purpose was to make us a total different people than what the white man had made us. Operating as the white man's mind, we probably would see revenge. You got some ignorant Negroes that would try to seek revenge on these people for what they done. But with a different mindset, with the mindset of God, which we're supposed to have anyway, which is our direct nature, we would not operate under those principles. We would be operating on a total different opposite principle for what they have operated on. So therefore, instead of trying to destroy other civilizations, we would be benefiting them. We would actually be benefiting their existence.
Yeah, very interesting. So, do you think there's any solution or any progress? Well, of course there'd be some progress. But let me say major progress. Never integrated. Do you think there can be? Is it possible to have major progress within the
Integrated and separated. Integrated.
Yeah.
I don't think we ever will have any progress. I don't think we ever will. This state, I'm originally from Arkansas, bro.
Okay.
I've been in the state almost 20 years. And this is the state of Black Wall Street. And I know people in this state that don't know about Black Wall Street. They have no, they don't even have no, yes, sir. Multiple people. This is, and multiple people among young Black people, particularly, they have no idea what Black Wall Street is. They have no idea what that history is, how that history exists, how it even came about. One of the things that Brother Muhammad said that would be one of the last tricks of the devil is false friendship. In this state, there's a big issue with false friendship. These white people in the state, they love you to death. All they open their doors for you. All they'll do is for you. But at the end of the day, if you look at their political system, this state has more unfair justice when it comes to incarcerating Black males. This state incarcerates Black males more than Texas, more than California.
Wow, is it a Republican state?
Yes, sir, this is a Republican state. But they incarcerate more women. They're number 3 in the nation in incarceration population.
Wow.
After California and Texas, they're number 3 in the nation in incarceration rate population overall. They're number 1 in women incarceration, and they're by far they're like number 3 in the nation. They're like number 7 in the world. In the entire world, Oklahoma, the state of Oklahoma is number 7. And the parole system is a joke. And they have operated under this for over 40 years. They have operated in this, and the bottom is falling out of it. But a lot of the young people, they don't know how Black Wall Street even started, and this is their thing. But they do this thing called false friendship. They befriend them. Integration is the highest in this state. They love Black people. They lower Black people. And Black people fall up under the spell. But then when you get in the justice system, it's over for you. You don't get no justice. You don't get no equality. And they're taking your freedom at a mass rate.
Yeah, crazy. Have you read Michelle Alexander's book, The New Jim Crow?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Good book.
And it's a real good book. And in the state, bro, there's not the illiteracy rate is real high.
Really?
Yes, sir.
It's like slavery over there. What you talking? Can't read, locked up.
But and you know they're saying ignorance is bliss. owning stuff and running stuff, there is not a lot of black ownership in the state no more.
Really?
That one of the famous black businesses was a black brother. He passed away and he left it to his family. It was called Leo's Barbecue. Leo's Barbecue is not even black owned. Leo's Barbecue.
It's not a black owned.
It's renowned. It's not even black owned no more.
Not black owned now. Wow. They let it go.
Yeah. The children of this man basically allowed a group of white people to come in and invest, so-called invest.
Yeah.
And that was the end of that. But their state, you know, it did, I guess you could say, they took them to another level. But it's not a black owned and black operator. They don't have no say in the business no more.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. All right. So let me see. All right. As far as let's go with education. Like which directions which directions to black folks? Wait, before I go there, your views, right? The views that you, of course, have borrowed from the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, do they line up more so with, would you say line up more so with the Democrat Party or the Republican?
That's a tough one there, bro. That's real tough. I would probably say Democratic. I mean, my bad for Republican. I would probably say Republican because for the most part, we know that they do want to separate from.
Right.
They don't want to separate, but they want to. They want to segregate.
Yeah.
They want to segregate.
Yeah.
So I say I would have to say Republican.
Okay, so now you said that the literacy rate is high over there. So in the state. So what obviously, so many different solutions came from so many different people, ideas, all types of strategy and plans. This is 2021. And nothing was able to prevent that illiteracy rate to be so high. So what can be done now going into 2022? Realistically, yeah.
I think separation is the biggest key on that. When it comes to education in itself, separation is the biggest key because I read a Malcolm X meme, and Malcolm X, he made a statement about placing your child's brain in the hands of your enemy. And that meant so much. How could you place your child who you really, really, really truly love? How could you place his mind, his brain, and let the very enemy that hates you, how could you allow them to be the first ones to educate your children? Do you not understand what he's going to do? Do you not understand his motive? So I think as far as education, separation has to be key. We have to build our own schools. We have to have our own philosophy, our own thought. And it can't be a philosophy as in education as in the philosophies and art. It has to be, I think, one of the best. And it's crazy how Booker T. Washington is one of the most known schools throughout the country. There are so many schools named Booker T. Washington. But if you ask the average person who Booker T. Washington was, they can't tell you who Booker T. Washington is. And that's the same. But I think one of the things that, there was a big debate between Booker T. Washington and W.B. Du Bois, who was a highly educated man. He was very educated. But Booker T. Washington Booker T. Washington, his philosophy was to educate you in a way to where you can make money. Whereas W.B. Du Bois argued with him with that because he said that's manual labor. You teaching us to be stagnated into manual labor. Well, what other kind of way for a mass group of black people going to make a living? Manual labor. We have to learn. When Booker T. Washington built the Tuskegee Institution, it was the Tuskegee Institution at that time. Now it's the Tuskegee University. But when he built the Tuskegee Institution, he brought the people out on a wagon, put them out there on a wagon, and told them, class starts now. They said, well, what we going to learn? He said, we're going to learn how to chop down a tree. And he taught them how to chop down a tree. Well, with that tree is how the building got built. They built the institution ground up. When they got to school, they was looking around, what a school there. He said, you see them trees? You see that dirt? We're going to chop them trees down and make lumber. We're going to take that dirt and make brick. Class starts now. And he educated them using manual labor. The school was built by using manual labor.
Yeah.
So for people to think that manual labor is beneath us, it'll never be. Manual labor is how everything is built.
Now, your views on, so are you pro or against interracial relationships?
Again.
Okay. And tell me like reasons why.
Say what?
Like maybe one main reason why that you're against it.
Without the main reason why is because our mind, mentally, bro, we really can't handle that. And I'm just saying, we really can't handle that because we have an issue with black and we really shouldn't, because we have to really look at our motive, why we.
Yeah, sometimes I don't know why.
Sometimes those motives is not good.
Sometimes I don't know. I don't know what this is. I don't know if it's a Zoom issue, internet. It got to be Zoom, because for some reason it start doing that. It start like sound like there's no internet connection. That just Zoom, because the internet be fine. If there's an internet problem, trust me, this live be over. Okay. I don't know what the hell it is. So let's get into our scheduled programming. You good? Shoot check. Yep. Nah, it's not my mic. It's actually like with the original. This is a pre-recorded interview. So it's the Zoom. Like Zoom be tripping like that. Like when I share something, it'd be good, all good at one point, and then it does what it does just now. And like all I gotta do is just stop the share and the share like in 1 second to be back good. And sometimes be right back bad, like 3 minutes. It's weird. So anyway, let me read this guy. Sovereign citizen convicted of biting off tip of Knoxville officer's thumb. And this is his license over here, the right to travel. He thinks he could go to, what's that called, customs, and provide him with this little bullshit right here. And they just, okay, bro, you got it. Well, hold on real second. Let me go ahead and charge my laptop up. It's about to die. I'm mad as hell because I went to the store to pick up some snacks, big, and I'm at the store and this Zoom shit messing up. It's weird, man. Just weird, man. Just weird stuff be happening now. I can't even like go run the store and let the live play and have a clear, shared screen with the audio. I come back, it's fuzzy. Like weird, man. Anyway, let me I bought some peanut. I was gonna buy some chips, but I said, I don't like, I could eat chips. I'm not a chip guy like that, but it gotta be like during the day. I can't eat chips at nighttime because I wake up with that in my stomach and it bothers me. You dig? So let me charge this laptop before the Zoom meeting ends. And let's get started with what the hell is that? God.
Because it's not.
You see, it's doing it again. It's doing it again. Let's start doing it again. All right, so let me charge my laptop up. I'm gonna read this story about this crazy ass Hebrew sovereign citizen. Okay. Matter of fact, let me read the definition of sovereign citizen first. Okay. How about we go there? All right. Oh boy. Let's read this right here real quick. Oh, disgusting. All right. So the sovereign citizen movement, also the Sovsit movement, or Sovsit movement, or Sovsits, is a loose grouping of primarily American litigants, activists, tax protesters, financial scheme promoters, and conspiracy theorists. Oh my God, that conspiracy theory, bro. It's gonna bite you every time. Who claim to be answerable only to their particular interpretations of the common law and not, oh my God, really? Come on, I didn't even do, I hate this Mac shit, man. Who claim to be answerable only to their particular interpretations of the common law, if it means they're cherry picking, and not to be subject to any government statutes or proceedings unless they consent to them. The sovereign citizen movement is, come on, man. This guy. Hold on 1 second. All right, so where was I? The sovereign citizen movement is one of the main contemporary sources of pseudo law. Damn, they said it. I didn't say it. Sovereign citizen movement is one of the main contemporary sources of pseudo law. Hold on. God damn, this guy. All right. Members notably believe that courts have no actual jurisdiction over people and that the use of certain procedures and loopholes can make one immune from government laws and regulation. Okay. They also regard most forms of taxation as illegitimate. Sovereign citizen arguments have no basis in law and have never been successful in court. This is Wikipedia, okay? Sovereign citizen arguments have no basis in law and have never been successful in court. The movement may appeal to people facing financial or legal difficulties, So it's always, everybody's always prey on the have-nots. The credit repair scams, the Forex scams, the Bitcoin scams, always poor people. Always. Okay? So the cyber movement is right along with that, right along the lines of appealing to the have-nots. All right? The movement may appeal to people facing financial or legal difficulties, which child support is one of them, or wishing to resist perceived government oppression and looking for a mechanism that will solve their problems. As a result, it has grown significantly during times of economic or social crisis, like most pyramid schemes. Most schemes promoted by sovereign citizens involve means to avoid taxes, ignore laws, eliminate debts, or extract money from the government. Right, the Social Security scam. American participants in the movement claim that the United States federal government is illegitimate. They argue the concept of individual sovereignty in opposition to the idea of federal citizens, who they say have unknowingly forfeited their rights by accepting some aspect of federal law. I was like, okay. I always was speculative on this movement, and I said this is some Republican, anti-federal government types. Now I know for a fact now. Okay. When you if you was in attendance of my live, I think last night, dealing with how the American government is formed, you would see that the states always resented federal government regulations. They feel like the federal government, to have little to no power. Okay, federal government. So here we have these state citizens who oppose federal law. They feel like the states should have control of and say so of their lively day-to-day affairs. Federal government should stay out of it. Okay. The analogs hold similar beliefs about the government of their own countries. The Freemen on the Land movement, an offshoot of the sovereign citizen movement with similar doctrines, is more commonly found in Commonwealth countries such as Canada and Australia. However, sovereign citizens as such have appeared in several countries. Wow. The movement can be traced back to American far-right groups. Told you. Wow. Like the Posse Comitatus and the Constitutionalist wing of the militant movement, anti-Semitism, it now includes differing racial ideologies as well as people of various ethnicities, most commonly whites and African Americans. There you go. The two dumbest people in America, if they buy into this doctrine. The latter sometimes belong to self-declared Moorish sects. The majority of sovereign citizens are not violent, and many will use pseudo-legal tactics as attempts to ignore certain rules to get out of debt or to avoid such things as paying license fees and traffic tickets. However, the schemes advocated by the movement are illegal and warrant prosecution. Yeah, you're going to jail. Many sovereign citizens have been found guilty of offenses such as tax evasion, hostile possession, forgery, threat against public officials, bank fraud or check fraud, as well as various degrees of traffic violations. Yeah, why would you want to be a part of that? Two of the most important crackdowns by the U.S. authorities on sovereign citizen organizations have been the 1996 case of Montana Freeman and the 2018 sentencing of Judge Bruce Doucette and his associates. Also, because some occasionally get into armed confrontation with law enforcement, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, classifies sovereign citizens extremists as domestic terrorists. Terry Nichols, one of the perpetrators of the 1995 Oklahoma City bombing, subscribed to a variation of sovereign citizen ideology. Oh, okay. And I think Timothy McVeigh is part of that. In surveys conducted in 2014 and 2015, representatives of U.S. law enforcement ranked the risk of terrorism from sovereign citizen movement higher than the risk from any other group, including Islamic extremists, militias, racists, and neo-Nazis. The New South Wales police force in Australia has also identified sovereign citizens as a potential terrorist threat. Wow. So I don't even want to read all that stuff. All right, cool. Cool. Anyway, let's go back to old boy. Let's read his case. Okay. Can we read this? We can't hear the brother. Your mic is fine, but got mad static. All right, hold on. I'll fix that. Give me a second. Let me fix that real fast. Here you go, dizziness. Here you go. Really? All right. Let me call in my damn self so it sounds better. Give me a second. He was calling in. All right. You guys are here to hear me now. All right, let's read this guy. Stuff. This stupid nigga, a man prosecutors say is a gang member and a sovereign citizen, was convicted Friday of biting off the end of a police officer's thumb during a traffic stop in 2017. I know they punched that nigga eyes out, but they better have. Bites my thumb off, man. They said club this nigga brain out of his damn socket. Knox County District Attorney General Charm Allen's office says Alexander Ray Johnson, 30 years old, was convicted of aggravated assault and 2 counts of assault. Prosecutors told the jury that on June 14, 2017, Knoxville Police Department Officer Tim Edwards stopped the vehicle Johnson was driving for speeding and not having a license plate because he's a sovereign citizen. He's a Moor. In this case, he's a Hebrew Israelite. My bad. Instead of a valid plate, there was a plate claiming Johnson's right to travel as a sovereign Hebrew Israelite. Oh my God, he actually believed this shit. Wow. So it doesn't surprise me how dumb niggas can be. Prosecutors also said Johnson would not provide a valid driver's license and argued with the officer about whether speeding was a crime. Oh shit, you just bro. Told you, man, niggas be lawless, bro.
Officer Trey Lane arrived as a backup officer as Johnson became more hostile. When officers asked Johnson to step out the car, he refused and began fighting officers, kicking and punching them. During the fight, Johnson bit off the tip of Lane's thumb, causing what prosecutors said was a permanent damage. So had he shot this nigga, y'all be crying and trying to protest and boycott. Sentencing is set for March 28th because the jury found Johnson to be a member of the Bloods criminal gang. Prosecutors will ask for a maximum sentence of 6 years in prison. That's light. All right. Anyway, the theme, sovereign citizen. Okay, so let's go back to here. All right. Let me close that. And let's get into it.
Ever since we started looking for a rewards credit card, Jim's really been on the fence about which one to go with.
You know, at NerdWallet, we have side-by-side comparisons of top credit cards so you can make the smartest decision.
I'm coming down. Honey, could you get the ladder?
NerdWallet, the smartest decision for all your financial decisions.
If you haven't pieced together, we're from Volusia. Yeah. What's that? Okay. Oh, did you? That's interesting. All right. It went through with it, huh? Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh, don't. That hurts my wrist.
Put your hands behind your back. Okay.
What is going on?
You have a warrant for your arrest.
For what?
I'm going to tell you in just a moment, okay?
And you just said a brake light.
Yeah, I did.
Ow, ow. Come on now, that hurts my wrist.
Well, don't hold your hands like that. Hold them
well,
like this.
You had them like that. I'm sorry. My boyfriend's just pulling in the yard.
Okay.
Right there? No, right there.
That's not your
him.
boyfriend.
My boyfriend is in
X-ray,
there.
21 seconds.
What is the...
You didn't clear the air. She's secure.
I'm not gonna run.
That's fine, I catch your
I
Alright, do me a favor, just walk back there a little bit. You have an ID in your car?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'll
take you out. Go ahead and spread your feet. He's making a eastbound turn.
Yep, whenever you can.
Yep. You guys know roughly when it expired?
January.
Southbound on the child's at. We're coming up all around the car. 12F. Hands up! Get your hands up! Put your fucking hands up! Don't you move! Don't you fucking move! Open the car door! Open the car door! Come on over here, guys. Keep your hands out the window. Keep your hands out the window. No, I got him at gunpoint. Stand by. Keep your hands out the window. Come out of the car. Go down to the ground. Go down to the ground. Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back. Don't move. Just stay just like that, all right?
Don't move and hold these.
All right, he's secure. You slow it down. The fuck you doing?
Nothing, sir.
You got any gun or anything on you, man?
No, sir. No
Ain't gonna tell you that,
No,
officer.
I have my-
Get back up on your knee.
Help him out. You got no hands.
Come up on this. Can I get you up like this, dude? You're too big for me to lift on.
He's coming to get
Come on,
down.
stay just like that.
I assure you that if you're out there trafficking drugs in our communities, it's only a matter of time before we're kicking in your front door and you're going
What?
to jail.
Damn. There's threat there. Okay. Yeah. Let's go.
1.5 million people were arrested.
I was looking for a way to make some extra money. I saw this video of a guy talking about how much money he made on DoorDash.
About 1.5 million people were arrested in a given year for driving under the influence of alcohol or drugs in 2019. That's according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. That means that 1 out of every 121 licensed drivers were arrested for drunk driving. What these statistics show is that drunk driving is a serious offense. Unfortunately, repeat offenders pose the greatest risk, accounting for nearly 1/3 of all drunk driving related arrests. We are joined by Larry Foreman, the owner of Foreman and Associates, who wishes that he didn't have to defend people in these predicaments, but someone has to do it. Welcome to the show, Larry.
Thank you, Brett. That's right. Someone has to do it.
And
you're
you're
absolutely right.
so there's a lot of things that people might not know at the time because it's a tough time for them. They're in a kind of a bad predicament, as we just said, but there are some steps that they could do that might help them in the long run.
Sure, absolutely. And a lot of clients call me, especially because they're feeling the pain, they're feeling the weight of this offense that's bearing down on them. They want to talk to someone who knows the process, who knows what to do, how to do it. And you believe it or not, 90% of the work initially is the simple calming down of the client, letting them know, look, you're in good hands, I got you, and we can move forward.
And oftentimes, though, when they call you, it might be too late when they're out dealing with the police. But you say that they shouldn't talk to police. Why is that?
Absolutely. The police are not your friend. The police are not there to help you. The police are only there to gather data, gather evidence, and the more you incriminate yourself, the better it is going to be for the police. Now, it is normal human nature, and we're all raised this way since we're kids. We think that we can talk our ways out of situations. You know, your parent may scold you for doing something you shouldn't have done. It is normal human nature. It's a normal human reaction to try and explain yourself to the police officer, because individuals see police officers as kind of like a parental figure, only they belong to the government. They're not really their parental unit. But the issue is that all the information that you're volunteering for this police officer, he later brings back to the county attorney or the Commonwealth attorney if the charges are more serious, and now the county attorney or the Commonwealth attorney has ammunition to use against you in order to convict you in a court of law.
Yeah. So, and in that instance as well, you might be asked to do a sobriety test, a breathalyzer, et cetera, and you.
Yes, in other words, when you are talking to the cops willfully and voluntarily, the police officers, you are helping them gather a case against you. Okay? What you're saying is they're not going to testify on your behalf. So when you go to court, and that police officer is present in court, he's not testifying on your behalf. He's testifying against your behalf. Okay? So the information you give him, he's trying to figure out the prosecutor, because he's going to cite it and document it. The prosecutor is going to be trying to decide how can we use this to build a strong case to get a guilty conviction against you. Okay?
You say you should also refuse that. Why should you refuse that? And also, what happens if you do refuse that?
Absolutely, Brett. Just as I have said in my commercial, you always refuse everything. Refuse the talking to the police. You refuse the breath test at the scene. You refuse the field sobriety tests, and you refuse the breath test at the station.
Okay? You hear that? You gotta refuse that stuff. If you are suspected of driving while intoxicated or driving under the influence of alcohol, you heard the brother. Refuse all that type stuff. If you want to make it easy for yourself later on in court and for your defense attorney. All right? So let's go for it. It's good information.
There are absolutely no legal consequences for not talking to the police, not doing the field sobriety tests, and not doing the preliminary breath test, or the PBT as it is known.
Otherwise, you're not obligated to participate in the police officer's investigation. Okay? You're not. Carry on.
On the scene. However, there are consequences for refusing either the breathalyzer at the station or the blood test at the station. So,
although it's wise not to take the breathalyzer at the station or at the actual initial police stop, the penalty for doing so, which you gotta become Jesus. You gotta sacrifice yourself. You will go to jail. You dig? That's what he's implying, alluding to, and he might outright say it. When you are smart, and you not the field sobriety test. The field sobriety test is when they had you hop on one leg, bark like a dog. You won't go to jail for refusing that. But you will go to jail for refusing the breathalyzer, blowing to the thing, or any other type of medical blood, that type of stuff. You will go to jail. That's what he's gonna say. Let's go.
those do carry a license suspension, and in Kentucky.
Oh, my bad. So, a license.
Kentucky, it is the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration carry very severe penalties for individuals who refuse the breathalyzer test at the station, not the one on the scene. So those are the two exceptions. If you are under the FAA, the Federal Aviation.
So, in other words, at the station, that's when the penalty comes, not the one on the scene. Okay, but they will put you in handcuffs once you don't want to play ball. But you got to know that. You got to know that. And that's when your defense attorney is going to defend you. You did.
Association or the FMCSA carrying a commercial driver's license. Those are the only two exceptions where the individual should submit, because the penalties for refusing, even though you may be operating a non-commercial motor vehicle and not in an airplane, you're operating your own personal vehicle, you are still subject to some very serious consequences.
So for people that want to get in touch with you, what do they have to do to get more information?
They can call the office line, which is 1-844-4DUI-GUI. Or 502-931-6788. I also have a couple of websites, www.larryforemanlaw.com and www.ky.
So now let's get into the live. he came here for. Can a cop use a canine to search the vehicle? Can a cop use a canine to detain you? Let's find out.
Social media is wild. Hootsuite helps brands survive and thrive.
The very first case that dealt with canines that I could find that's pertinent and relevant to our topic here today comes from 1976 from the Fifth Circuit. It's United States v. Race. And Race basically said that if a police dog, this basically sets the stage for police dogs. This probably was the first time the use of a police dog was ever contested. The defendant probably tried to argue that a dog does not belong in the field. They are not sufficient for detection of drugs and so on and so forth. But the court said that after a well-trained, this is the key. Now remember, there are two phrases that will be pretty much repeated throughout. Well-trained, another one you will hear is without warning or with warning. Warning is very crucial for purposes of finding the absence or presence of constitutionality when it comes to canine use. But a well-trained drug detection police dog.
So that's
if one of those indicates after a sniff, so a well-trained drug detection police dog indicates on a particular vehicle or object or person, that is enough to establish probable cause. That's it. That's the main takeaway from that case. That's United States v. Race. Pretty much set the stage. If the dog is well trained, no problemo. You got probable cause, officer, and now you can you don't even need to search anymore. You can begin the process of arrest. That's no longer reasonable suspicion. Reasonable suspicion could be a search, but probable cause could be search and arrest. I'm sorry. Reasonable suspicion is not first search. I misspoke. So it gives you probable cause to search and arrest an individual if they indeed have contraband on them. Now, the next case comes only 7 years later, 1983, and it's a United States Supreme Court case called United States v. Place. That case said that the sniffing of personal items, okay, now we're in the territory of personal items of a person in a public place by a dog for the purpose of finding contraband is not a search under the Fourth Amendment. So, you know how we always discuss that a search must be supported by probable cause? Well, a dog coming up to you in a public place and sniffing your suitcase is not a search. So constitutionally, you are permitted as a police officer, and I mean, we've seen it to this day. This is the seminal 1983 decision 37 years ago that a police dog in an airport, for instance, as you're passing by carrying your luggage, if a police dog comes up, sniffs your suitcase, and indicates on it that he found something, you can be stopped, and that's enough probable cause to search your suitcase. So in your personal, you don't have a reasonable expectation of privacy in your personal items in a public place. Those are the key words out of United States v. Place. Next, we have United States v. Thomas. Now, this is a Second Circuit decision out of 1985. And it basically said that when it comes to, so we talked about personal items, but the use of a dog to detect odors, smells, emanating from an apartment while at a lawful place outside the apartment, so this is one of those cases where the court found unconstitutional conduct by law enforcement, that is still a search, because the court emphasized there is a higher expectation of privacy in a dwelling rather than in objects transported through public places, such as we discussed in an airport with your luggage or a vehicle driving down the highway, for example. So that requires probable cause or a warrant in order to search, if you don't have consent, of course. So by having the canine sniff and detect odors outside of an apartment is unconstitutional. Okay, this is one of those rare cases where the court found unconstitutionality. Now, the Washington Court of Appeals in 1986, in a case called State v. Boyce, B-O-Y-C-E, stated that the use of a canine to sniff a person or the objects carried by that person is offensive at best and harrowing at worst to the innocent sniffee. That was a quote. Offensive at best and harrowing at worst to the innocent sniffee, and requires reasonable suspicion. So why is that important? When a canine sniffs, they can't simply do it without reasonable suspicion. You cannot stop an individual willy-nilly and have the canine sniff and then, oh, voila, we just found probable cause. You must have reasonable suspicion. And by the way, as you will see with these cases, reasonable suspicion could be as simple and as easy as you looking nervous, maybe evading questions, evading eye contact, having sweaty palms, sweating profusely, anything like that. Any of those possible indicia of criminality, indicia of guilt on the street could be enough for reasonable suspicion to search you, as you will see in subsequent cases. Now, so that's another case where the Washington Appellate Court said just randomly sniffing people without any reasonable suspicion whatsoever is unconstitutional. And you can imagine what this is. This almost starts to smell like, pardon the pun, Nazi Germany, Third Reich and Gestapo and the secret police just walking around checking everybody under the sun. I mean, that just violates every precept of constitutionality, even from a common sense standpoint, let alone under our own United States American Constitution. So even though you do have a lower expectation of privacy when you're carrying private objects through public spaces, they do require reasonable suspicion before they can approach and have the dog sniff. And then in Robinette v. Barnes, a Sixth Circuit case, so close to home, 1988, actually the year I was born, said that the use of a properly trained police dog to apprehend a felony suspect, so we're shifting gears now, to apprehend a felony suspect does not carry with it a substantial risk of causing death or serious bodily harm. Now, let me read that again, because remember the 1976 case set the standard. Dogs can, as long as they're well trained, they can sniff, no problemo, so long as certain requirements are met. Now in 1988, 12 years later, again, properly trained. See, well-trained, properly trained. This language is going to be all over the place when it comes to canines. A properly trained police dog can apprehend a felony suspect, and it does not carry a substantial risk of causing death or serious bodily harm. So now dogs are allowed to apprehend suspects. Ryan, remember how I told you to hold your questions until I finish? This is one of those times where I'm going to invoke this clause, because as you will see, that will be defined in later cases. And you're going to be shocked, by the way. And REM pretty much has already answered that. Next, in 1988, the same year, in the Fifth Circuit, there was a case called United States v. Lavelle. Now, Lavelle checked his luggage in with a carrier, and as he was boarding the plane. Now, the luggage was, for whatever reason, removed from the conveyor belt and sniffed by a dog. I guess they were maybe on high alert that there were drug couriers in the area. They were probably sniffing every suitcase. This wasn't just a random check, in my opinion, but who knows? But the court ruled that the removal of the bags from the conveyor belt was, quote, insufficient to constitute a meaningful interference with Lavelle's possessory interest in his bags, end quote. So they again said the expectation of privacy does not extend to the airspace surrounding his luggage, and the sniffing of the air by a drug dog, again, is not a search. So it basically, you're seeing a common thread here. If you have items and you're passing them through a common carrier, you have them with you, and there's some element of reasonable suspicion, reasonable and articulable suspicion that drugs may be in the luggage, they can't just open it and search it. You have a reasonable expectation of privacy there. But the problem is a dog sniff penetrates that reasonable expectation of privacy. It's almost like a mechanical instrument, if you will, only it's a living, breathing organism that penetrates your reasonable expectation of privacy and your constitutional rights. So again, even though the luggage was nowhere near you, it was just to your name. Obviously, it had the tags on it, so they knew who the luggage belonged to. And it was sniffed by a dog as it was coming across the conveyor belt in 1988. That was enough to basically beat your reasonable expectation of privacy, and no Fourth Amendment violation has occurred. Then we're jumping to 1994. Once again, we're back in the Sixth Circuit. Matthews v. Jones is the case. And we're back to excessive force and the use of police dogs. The case said that the court found there was no excessive force where it was clear that the officer who sicked the dog on the individual warned the plaintiff, number one, okay, see, very crucial, who was a fleeing misdemeanant, and he warned him several times, and then released the police dog to apprehend him. Once again, by the way, I'd like to remind you, don't forget to comment below, like this video, and subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell if you haven't already. Excuse me. So as long as the warning, the individual has been fleeing and committing a misdemeanor, and the warning came several times, so it wasn't just one warning. And that was enough to say that that's not excessive force. The sicking of the dog on the fleeing misdemeanant was proper, appropriate, and constitutional. No violation of the client's constitutional rights in that case. And I imagine, even though the notes that I have here don't specifically talk about it, the officer was not held liable, obviously, for the conduct of the dog. Now, next year, after that, 1995, Merritt v. Moore, a case of M-E-R-R-E-T-T v. Moore, basically said, this is a roadblock canine case. It said that canines can be used to sniff a vehicle at a license and registration check roadblock, so long as their use does not unreasonably delay the motorist. So again, having a dog at a roadblock, as long as it's just a quick sweep, 1, 2, 3, off you go. That's constitutional. No problems at all. In 1996, in the Sixth Circuit, United States v. Guzman said that if a dog shows only interest, okay, they're not indicating, but simply shows interest. Hello, Mike. But does not alert, okay, shows interest, but does not alert, that is not probable cause. And the handler's awareness in the interest can be used in conjunction with the totality of other facts and circumstances to establish probable cause, but the interest alone is insufficient for probable cause just by itself. It must be an indication. So if the dog does not indicate, then that's not enough. United States v. Kennedy, a 10th Circuit case out of in 1997, out of the 10th Circuit, stated that, and this is pretty much going to start answering your question, and there's another case that even solidifies it further, by the way. There's basically, I'm going to tell you right now, there is no gradation on probable cause. Is this a 90% probable cause? Is this a 60% probable cause? Is this a 10% probable cause? Probable cause is probable cause is probable cause. Just like reasonable suspicion is reasonable suspicion. There is no gradation as to how, quote unquote, accurate it is, and it bleeds into dogs as well. It said that a warrant is not rendered invalid because the dog handler did not keep accurate training records or train the dog on a regular basis. Now, let me read that again. This is only 23 years ago. A warrant is not rendered invalid because the dog handler did not keep accurate training records or train the dog on a regular basis. So if you have been failing in training the dog and the dog is mediocre in his training, so long as he is certified in detecting drugs, and in that particular case, in United States v. Kennedy, 1997, had a reliability rate of 70 to 80% accuracy. 70 to 80% accuracy. The court said that is enough to establish probable cause. Period. So in that case, of course, the dog handler had a dog, and the dog searched, found drugs, and there was a warrant issued in order to search based on that sniff. And that was enough. I guess on cross-examination, they could not provide accurate records. And I'm sure the defense attorney was ecstatic. They thought, oh, we got this one in the bag. I mean, I would be in 1997 and with a case like this, sure. If the handler is on the stand testifying, yeah, oh, I think I was supposed to train him on that Tuesday, but it rained, so I didn't, and we skipped, and then I forgot to train him a couple of weeks after that. So we do have some gaps in training, but he is a certified drug dog, and he is trained in detecting drugs, and then the court will determine that his reliability rate is about 70, 80%. That's enough. That is enough for probable cause. And we'll come back to this in subsequent cases. Scary, right? Absolutely crazy. U.S. versus Anchondo, excuse me, Anchondo, a case from 1998 out of the 10th Circuit, basically said an officer can search a person if the canine alerts on a vehicle where the person was, but no drugs were found. Simple, right? Dog searching around the vehicle. Let's say they ask you to exit the vehicle. They search the car. They don't find anything. They now have reasonable suspicion, probable cause to search you because the dog just recently indicated on the vehicle. If the vehicle is empty, then it's got to be on you. They can search you. No problems, especially since you were the one occupying the vehicle. The probability of drugs
if it diminishes in the vehicle, then it increases of the drugs being on the person. Common sense. Now, here's an interesting one. From the same year, 1998, out of the Fourth Circuit, Vathekan, Vathekan versus Prince George's County. The Fourth Circuit reversed a summary judgment ruling in favor of a police officer. So a police officer filed a summary judgment motion, probably asserting qualified immunity or something like that. And the Fourth Circuit said, and reversed a court because the police officer, here we go, deployed the police dog with no verbal warning. Now, there's an exception to that. We'll get to that in a subsequent case. But you see how crucial warning is. We talked about, where is that one case? Properly trained, no. Warned. Matthew V. Jones, remember that case in 1994? No excessive force was found where the plaintiff was warned multiple times as he was fleeing. But here you go. The Fourth Circuit said, no, you cannot just grant summary judgment to a police officer because there was no verbal warning issued to the fleeing suspect. And again, in the same year, 1998, out of the Ninth Circuit, Veracruz versus City of Escondido, the use of a trained police dog in biting a suspect to assist in arrest, now we have a bite, is not deadly force as applied under Tennessee v. Garner. The use of the dog is not limited to circumstances where the suspect has to be an imminent life threat to others. So just sicking a dog is not deadly force. And it's not limited to circumstances where the suspect poses an imminent threat of deadly harm to others. So you could just be running away empty-handed, and that's going to be enough for them to sick a dog on you. Okay, so that's 1998 in Veracruz. In 1999, out of the First Circuit, the case of United States v. Owens. Here's another extrapolation as to the need or the complete disregard as to the training of the dog. Even if, this is what Owens said, even if a dog failed to pass 2 previous certifications, and it was certified at the time of the sniff, and the handler and training supervisor testified to its reliability, the dog is sufficiently reliable to support a finding of probable cause. Again, that's absolutely staggering, right? The first we said 70 to 80% reliability rate is enough. Inaccurate training records or failure to keep accurate training records, failing to train the dog on a regular basis. And now you have a dog who has failed its first certification, failed its second certification, passed on the third certification, went out into the field, and that's enough. Absolutely crazy. But that's the law. And it's been established 21 years ago. Now we're finally in the 2000s. Now these are going to be a little bit closer together in time. And I'm probably going to try and move a little bit faster. In the city of Indianapolis v. Edmond, it's a 2000 case from the United States Supreme Court, said that it's unconstitutional. This is another one of those rare ones. Unconstitutional to set up a checkpoint to detect evidence of ordinary criminal wrongdoing. And in this case, the officers were looking for drugs. That's all they were doing. They set up a checkpoint. We're just looking. We don't even care about drunk drivers or anything like that. We just want to apprehend people who have drug possessions. The officers used canines to sniff vehicles stopped at the roadblock. And the court said, nope, you cannot do that. You cannot establish a roadblock simply for the purpose of sniffing their cars for drugs. You have a reasonable expectation of privacy there. Then 3 years ago, the 8th Circuit in 2003, in a case of Kuha versus City of Minnetonka, said that a dog, releasing a dog without warning, was objectively unreasonable. Here it is again. So warning is very, very crucial to find reasonableness. Warning him would not put the officers at any increased risk. And the court indicated that giving the warning is a constitutional requirement. They went so far as to call it that. Only under unusual circumstances can the officer forego the warning. And you will see in a little bit, there is a circumstance where issuing a warning is not going to be required. But it's extremely rare. And it is a huge exception to the warning requirement when it comes to canines. And then in the same year, the 9th Circuit, in a case of Miller v. Clark County, the court said that the use of a police dog to bite and hold a potentially dangerous fleeing felon for up to 1 minute until the situation is ensured to be safe does not violate the Fourth Amendment. So when the dog is sicked, as long as there's a warning given, I presume in that case the warning was given, the suspect was hiding in a wooded area, the officer announced that the dog would be released if he's not going to reveal himself. The suspect did not reveal himself. They released the dog found him, and he bit and held on. And then it took the officer approximately 1 minute to find him, and the court said that is okay. Then this one is quite an interesting and I don't know. I've never seen anything like it. This seems like almost a case out of a movie. It's U.S. v. Moore. And I've never seen anything like this. It's out of the 4th Circuit. It's a 2003 case. And by the way, it's also out of Prince George County. I don't know why they have such bad police work. The 1998 case where there was no verbal warning and the court reversed summary judgment. Here it is again, the same Prince George's County, Maryland police officer. Basically, there were these burglars, and they were on a roof of a building that they were burglarizing. Well, somebody caught them, called the police. Police show up. They find them. The idiots are still on the roof. They haven't even had a chance to leave. I mean, there's nowhere to go. They have to come down off of the roof. And police officers are waiting for them down on the right below. Well, the suspects cooperated. They realized, well, we screwed up. Time to, pay the piper. We got caught. They fully cooperated with the police. They had their hands in the air. No problems, no resistance, none whatsoever. And then one of the officers who was with Officer Moore, remember this is a case called U.S. v. Moore, he asked a sergeant, "Hey, Sarge, can that dog get a bite of one of these suspects?" Now, mind you, these suspects haven't done anything wrong. They have, other than burglarizing a building, of course, it's a crime, sure, but it's not a violent crime. It's they're not trying to flee. They're not trying to resist. They're not resisting arrest. It simply says, "Hey, Sarge, can the dog get a bite of one of these suckers?" And the sergeant said, "Yeah, sure." Moore releases the dog, and the dog bites one of the suspects while he is standing there with his hands in the air. Talk about the epitome of unconstitutionality. Now, the suspects made no movement. They made no attempts to escape. They offered no resistance. And it's absolutely cruel and unusual punishment. You could say that. You wouldn't be arguing that, but I see what you're trying to say. But it is excessive force. 100% excessive force. They didn't try to escape. They made no movements to justify this attack. Now, interestingly, Moore was not only tried civilly for that case, and probably the city had to pay, I don't know how much, maybe a couple million for something like that, depending on how severe the injuries were. Because it's so intentional. I mean, this is the definition of intentional conduct, right? This is the definition of a case that requires punitive damages. Moore was tried and convicted in federal court for acting under the color of law to willfully deprive a suspect of his right to be free from the use of unreasonable force. And you're never going to guess, but she was sentenced to 10 years in prison. And rightfully so. Absolutely rightfully so. I never read a case that said a police officer went to prison for unlawful conduct. And of course, this is 100% completely justified. I was just shocked when I read it. I thought she would get a slap on the wrist and get transferred to another department, but they actually prosecuted her. The cop, yes, Tammy, the cop ended up being sentenced to 10 years in prison. Now, how much did she actually serve of that? I don't know. I'm sure you can look it up if you do the research. But I would be surprised if she actually served more than 2 or 3, personally. She was probably maybe even 1. She may have been released on parole very quickly, I'm sure, because again, it's in the mind of law enforcement, it's going to be a fairly quote unquote low level offense in the eyes of the justice system, I guess I should say. So I would be highly shocked if she served more than 1 or 2 years, really. But she was sentenced to 10. So, and this is 2003, mind you. But interestingly, if you've noticed, again, this case is just so unusual in its facts. I mean, hey, Sarge, can the dog get a bite? Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Release the leash and let the dog wreak havoc. I mean, that's just almost like cartoonish in its nature. So, anyway, save your questions for the end. Now, this one actually had to look up to make sure that I wasn't seeing things. It's a case called U.S. v. Outlaw. What a great last name to be a criminal, right? Mr. Outlaw. I would have loved to just be the judge or the prosecutor. I wouldn't even use the defendant in the case. I would literally say Mr. Outlaw the entire fucking trial. Mr. Outlaw has, and Mr. Outlaw was at this point. Mr. Outlaw then went over to the barn when he, stole the pigs or whatever. Mr. Outlaw is just such a great name. But there's a case, U.S. v. Outlaw, and his actual name is Freeman. Not for very long, but he was for a short while. Freeman Charles Outlaw is his real name. It's crazy. It's such a fantastic name. Freeman Outlaw. It's an oxymoron too, right? How can you be a free man when you're an outlaw? You're a free man while you're an outlaw, but then very quickly you're going to be caught. In Edmonds, Washington, the police chief's last name is Lawless. Yeah, that's even more interesting. I believe that. And yeah, as a prosecutor, Mike Jones, calling Mr. Outlaw by his real name, Mr. Outlaw, show me the unconstitutionality. Sure, it's biased as hell, but it's his name. I mean, it's in the name, Anyway, what happened in that case? So a dog was trained on several different things. He was certified to detect marijuana and its derivatives, cocaine and its derivatives, heroin and its derivatives, and methamphetamine. Okay. And the dog was ordered to sniff Mr. Outlaw's luggage or suitcase or what have you, and at the border. And the canine indicated that he found something, and the substance that was found inside Mr. Outlaw's personal belongings turned out to be PCP. So nothing that the dog was trained on. But the court said that even though the dog was not trained to detect PCP, that does not vitiate the agent's reasonable suspicion under the facts. So it's kind of like, the insurance policy that you bought, and it covers everything, but the one thing you need covered by the policy. This is the opposite of that. It doesn't matter that he was trained for everything, but and he found the PCP that he was not trained under. That was enough for reasonable suspicion. Then that's from 2003 in the Fifth Circuit. I'm not sure if I said that. Then in the same year, out of the 10th Circuit, we get the case of United States v. Ramirez. And that case said that an investigation into the contents of the package does not have to cease just because a canine failed to alert to it. So you could get probable cause from another source. The next year, in 2004, in a case of U.S. v. Jackson out of the Fifth Circuit, so that case is a little. This goes back to the whole acting nervous around police scenario. Narcotics officers get on a bus. The bus is headed to a terminal. It's stopped at a terminal. Narcotics officers are boarding it. And they ask the driver of the bus, "Do you mind if we search?" And he says, "No, go right ahead." They then tell all the passengers who have a reasonable expectation of privacy in their belongings that they're going to be doing a search using a police dog. And then they were told you can either remain on the bus or you can leave the bus. Well, naturally, what do you think everybody did? They got off the bus. But they noticed one particular individual who was leaving the bus by the name of Jackson, the name of the case. When Jackson was exiting the bus, he acted very suspicious. And the dog, after everybody exited, the dog indicated on a seat showing that a passenger was carrying drugs. So they came up to Jackson and they started a
I was live earlier, everything was fine, and now I don't know what the breakup is. Oh, live earlier, everything was fine. Now, second time, all of a sudden, that thing is working great. But this has happened before. Boom, flat out.